he's gonna be talking to us about Airbnb management. As we discussed yesterday, Airbnb has become the leading investment for foreigners here in the DR. So basically, they'll come, they will, buy a unit, and they will use that unit for short-term rentals, Airbnbs, basically. So how do you manage Airbnbs when you're investing in the country but you don't live here? Okay? What are some of the things that you have to keep in mind? All right? And so Abel is his company SmartINVEST, and that's what he does. Okay? He mostly works in the capital, with people who buy units in the capital. But he's going to talk to you. He's a very high-rated, Airbnb host. So he's going to tell you how you manage that when you do not live in the country. What are some of the things you want to keep in mind? And I have to say, you have to make sure, if you are an investor who is not living in the country, that the management company handling your short-term rental unit knows what they're doing, okay? Because if your rating is affected, that's going to affect, the occupancy rate, all right? So it's very important that you have someone who knows what they're doing at the helm. So without further ado, Abel, all yours.
Thank you. Since we started a bit late, I'll keep my comments brief, but I'll be available to answer any questions you may have after the presentation. So one of the first things we need to learn is what is needed in a short-term rental. Many of you already have experience managing Airbnbs, and one of the things that is very important is having good quality furniture. That will withstand the guest needs for years. Sometimes we encounter individual owners who want to furnish the units themselves, and one of the greatest concerns they have while furnishing the unit is keeping costs down. And they'll buy everything that looks pretty, the things that's cheapest, but what is the consequence of that? Within the year, you'll have things breaking down. You'll have to close your Airbnb because things need maintenance, things need to be replaced. And when you're working or fixing things, you're not renting your place. And the ideal scenario is, or the ideal situation is to get your unit available as many days as possible, never close down so that it could always be available for guests. We have an IKEA here in Santo Domingo, and many of the American investors recognize that brand. IKEA does have good quality things, but some of the things are not good quality. So there are other furniture stores that sell good quality furniture that will, again, withstand the continuous use of your unit for years to come. And one of the things that we encourage all our guests to do nowadays, and there's a lot of companies that offer it, is smart locks. It's very convenient for the guests to just enter a code that you give them, a code that you can change via an app through Wi-Fi every single time you have a guest, a code that you can give to the cleaning personnel so they can access the apartment, or even a code you can give to the handyman or the electrician so that he could have access to the apartment when it needs work. Because it's very challenging to be dealing with keys. Keys can be, we've had situations with apartments with keys. Guests take the keys. They just forget they have it in their pocket. And, unless you have a backup handy, then you have to wait for the apartment to be cleaned or to be serviced, and you have to track those keys down. And if you don't get the keys back, then what do you have to do? You have to change the locks, because then it will be a security issue. So those are the things you don't have to worry about with smart locks. One of the things that also is essential is having a good Wi-Fi connection. Most guests who come to the Airbnb often, they come for work. They come for business purposes. and they need to be connected to a VPN, or they need to do live streams or use Zoom, and they need a stable, strong, fast connection. Luckily, in this country, or specifically in this city, there are speeds of up to 300 megabits per second. I don't think any company requires that much speed, but it's good to know that you have it available, at least 50 megabits per second, or even 100 megabits per second, in case the apartment is being used simultaneously by a couple or 2 or 3 people who simultaneously need to connect. Another thing that is very important, even though with Airbnb it does have the ability to translate everything you put through the chat to the language of the individual who is chatting with you, but it's good to obviously be able to speak multiple languages. Sometimes you have guests who only speak Spanish or only speak English, and some Europeans who, obviously speak their own respective language, but may understand a little bit of English as well. So having the ability to speak multiple language will allow you to better service your guests. Also, competent, reliable, trustworthy, and cleaning staff and maintenance crew. And that is one of the things that makes it a little bit more challenging for you to manage your own apartment remotely from another country. Being able to find competent individuals that are trustworthy, that you can trust, that are not going to take anything, or that are going to be upfront with you in regards to the cost of an item that needs to be replaced. Having on hand this crew of individuals who are going to support you is detrimental or very important. In regards to our company, we consider ourselves experts in the market. We have been here over 18 years in the Dominican Republic, and because of that, we can answer any question that our clients have. We offer full turnkey options. In other words, not only can we sell you the unit, we can also furnish the unit on your behalf and assist you with the legal process of transferring the title to your name, pay property taxes, and manage the unit as well. We respond to any inquiries from our guests immediately. We are liaisons between the developer, the company who is making the building, and yourself, and our company is 100% fluent in English and Spanish. So I said I'll keep it brief, but I'll open it to your questions. If you have any specific questions regarding Airbnbs in the Dominican Republic or here in the city. Yes, in the back.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
So do you have a set price? Do you calculate by the bedroom? For example, if I have a 3-bedroom, more or less how much would that cost to set up as an Airbnb? Is there an inventory list that you use specifically so that we're prepared to start renting?
This is furnishing, or this is managing the property?
Furnishing. If you're going to do it.
Yeah. We do have, basically it depends on the individual owner. We're about to begin one furnishing now in September, and there's definitely a minimum set of requirements in order to have a profitable Airbnb, because you can't have an Airbnb and, like I mentioned earlier, just putting the bare essentials. You want your property to stand out from the rest because you want to have good occupancy, and at the same time you want to make sure that you can rent your property at a good nightly rate so that you're making some money. So yes, we do have a full list of inventories, but at the same time, being that we're in the Dominican Republic, furniture stores don't always carry the same products, so we have to be a little bit flexible in regards to the specific couch, the specific bed, the specific, in regards to every little thing, so that we don't retard the amount of time that it takes us to furnish the apartment. Instead of waiting for the store to have this particular product, we'll use comparable, similar quality products. And the difference between 1 and 2 bedrooms is not significant, because all you really need is, an additional bed, drawers, closet things. The price per additional bedroom is not significant. But overall, you do need to make sure that you have the essential items needed to have a profitable Airbnb.
So if I had a 2-bedroom here in the capital and I wanted you to furnish it, what would that cost?
Well, we will discuss it with the owner, but I would say minimum $30,000
For a 2-bedroom?
Yes.
Is that inside and out, barbecue, etc.?
Well, most of the 2 bedrooms will have a social area where people will have access to a barbecue or a pool, or gym, and not really one available in the apartment itself. It will also depend on the size of the balcony, if one will fit. Now, if you have a property like a penthouse with a huge terrace available privately to the guests, then that would be somewhere where it would be ideal to have like a barbecue.
And that $30,000, does that include appliances? Because normally you receive a new build without appliances, correct?
Yes, that's the starting price.
And does that include your fee?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Here in the front. Aquí adelante. Gracias.
Just a little bit more added on to Steve's question about furnishing. Is that leaving it ready to go, like even small appliances and silverware, cups, towels, linens, curtains, all that?
Yeah, we actually test a unit before we actually put it on Airbnb. Like I actually will sleep a night in the Airbnb to make sure that everything that I would need as a guest, I'll have it there, and to make sure that there's hot water, that all the faucets are working, that there's no issues during the nighttime, and that way we make sure we test the unit before we put it up in the platform. You guys had a question in the back? Uh-huh. Oh, I'm sorry. Eddie.
Hey, good morning. Hey, David. We've done some business in the past, but my question is Airbnb the only platform that your company uses? Do you use other platforms?
We do use Airbnb. I know there's others, Booking, VRBO, among others. But in this country, Airbnb surpasses all the rest. I know that guests or some of the owners may feel more comfortable using other ones because they're accustomed to using it in their respective countries. But in this country, Airbnb is the one that's more popular. Some of our owners do put properties in multiple, but if you do that, then you'll have to invest in a calendar system where you'll synchronize both booking sites so that you don't have duplication of reservations, because it could happen that somebody will book your property in Booking and a minute later book it at Airbnb, and then Airbnb currently charges significantly cancellation fees if you cancel without cause. So you just have to be careful and be really organized and be on top of those reservations when they come in. Yeah.
I don't know if you had said it. Did you say what your property management fees were?
No, I did not. They're 20%.
Okay. Also, how do you go about determining? One of the things with Airbnb is that people are trying to determine the best rates and stuff. How do you go about that?
Determining a nightly rate?
Yeah, nightly rates. Yeah.
Well, you kind of know your market. You kind of see, if you've been working in the field, you kind of see what things go for. But ultimately, if your apartment does not rent for the rate that you've placed, then you have to adjust it accordingly. So you kind of have to allow yourself to be molded by current market conditions. And there's also seasonality, like there are in any other place. During certain months of the year, you can afford to put a higher nightly rate, maybe $10, $15, $20 extra. But there's other times of the month or the year that you have to kind of lower your rate because it's a lower season.
So do you advise the owners on how to determine their rates, or you let them determine the rates?
Most of my clients allow us to handle everything. My clients are happy just to receive their monthly check or their transfer into their accounts and not nitpick at every little thing that the host does.
That's the next question.
We're more than willing to answer any questions and guide our clients in whatever they need.
That's going to be the third question, the transferring the money. Is it using that Jubilee app, or how's that done, like for people who are not in the country in terms of getting the money to them? How's that work?
Airbnb has used PayPal as one of the forms of payment. That is usually the easiest form. So if we receive the funds in PayPal, then we'll just PayPal it to the client. Some clients have Dominican bank accounts and want to keep the funds here in this country as opposed to in the U.S. So if that's the case, then we'll just transfer it to their Dominican bank account. Yeah.
My apologies if you covered this already. What on average is the return that your clients are seeing on their rentals?
I would say around 6 to 7% is the average. Now, my clients, the Airbnb is not really for everybody. My clients, the ideal person to invest in Airbnb is somebody who travels to the Dominican Republic on a regular basis and would like to potentially use their own apartment that they have on Airbnb for their own personal use. That way, you're making money on a monthly basis on your unit, but at the same time, when you're here in the country for a week or two out of the year, or every few months, you can stay in your own property as well. Alternatively, the other option would just be renting it long term to a good client. The downside of renting it long term is that it may take a number of months to find the ideal clients, in which time you're not making any money. Whereas in Airbnb, as soon as you put it on the platform, right away you'll start getting clients. So there are a few things to consider when deciding which option you prefer.
Stephen again from Casalenda. We have 185 villas in the rental pool, and I know some of the hosts charge less than you do and some charge a little more than you do. Is there a check-in, check-out fee for your services, or is that included in the 20%? What's included in that 20%, and what's not? Maybe more.
Basically, it's just the administration fees for us handling everything. We don't have to physically meet the client because we give them the instructions. Like I mentioned before, all of our apartments have smart locks, so we give them the code. And that became a lot more popular during COVID. We didn't want to have much interaction with guests. But I also find that a lot of guests just like being able to check in whatever time, not having somebody waiting for them or not having to meet somebody to give them the key or hand them the key or explain everything. The ideal scenario would be to have like a good manual or give them a good explanation of where things are, and to have a unit that is user-friendly, nothing very complicated, nothing too sophisticated. And also, like I said, having like a house manual, giving explanations, and or being available, to answer any questions if the guest has. Because some people are more accustomed to using Airbnbs and others are not. So some will have more questions.
So does that 20% include the check-in, check-out fee that some people charge or not?
I'm not even familiar with that fee.
Okay, so it does include it. Yeah. Thank you.
We do it all, and it's just 20%. Okay. Here front, I'm sorry. There's somebody.
How often do you guys maintain a 5-star rating inside of Airbnb typically?
I think our average is like 4.8.
Okay.
4.8 is the threshold to have superhost status.
So, I have a bunch of different Airbnbs and I hate the management of it. I have my hotel. It's so easy, it's a lot more interaction. It's easier to do those things. Do you do stuff in Samana?
No, we just here in Santo Domingo. It's just since there's obviously there's a lot of hands-on work involved. It's just a lot easier to be able to handle properties within your, area. Obviously, it is doable. I know of people who live in the U.S. and have, their support staff here, and they'll manage the client interactions and just have people here to do things for them. But it's just a little bit more challenging, especially when there are emergencies. When things happen, that's when you really test that ability.
So what percentage would you think that you've got a bunch of crybabies that just are difficult? I mean,
guests or clients?
Clients, or I guess guests. How often do you interact that you're just like, it's a lot of times it feels like with Airbnb, there's just a lot of scammers on the platform that just look for anything to like get one up on you. Do you feel that same way, or what's your perspective on it?
I think since I've been doing this for a while now, I pretty much know every single answer I need to give to anybody who potentially tries to do that. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I've worked with my staff for years, and I know the competency and the quality of their work. So if somebody tells me, oh, this, whatever, it's like, well, I already know. I know my staff. I know I've seen their quality year in, year out. So I can kind of tell you if it's accurate or not. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm not sure if you've noticed this with Airbnb, but Airbnb doesn't try to take sides sometimes, especially if they see that you are a host who's bringing them, tens of thousands of dollars on a regular basis. They want to keep you happy as well. So they're not always going to side with the guest. For example, the other day I had a guest. He's an older man, and he was brand new to Airbnb, and he ended up leaving because he didn't know how to turn on the AC. So the guest tried to obviously get a refund, but Airbnb did not grant him that refund. But we try to assist guests as much as possible, but Airbnb is not really meant for everybody. I think Airbnb was more designed for millennials, people who are accustomed to the market, and older guests are probably more accustomed to hotels. I've noticed that as well. But we try to assist our guests as much as possible. We send them videos, we send them manuals, we send them instructions, but there's some people who just don't get it. And you do as much as you can. You always are respectful to the guest, regardless of what they tell you. And that way, when Airbnb reviews the conversations that you've had with them, they've seen that you answered correctly, you were respectful, and in that way, most of the time they'll side with you as a host.
Excellent, thank you.
In the back, again. Let me know how I'm doing with time.
A couple things real quick, just to confirm. Did you say you're only in Santo Domingo? And
yes.
So you're not in Punta Cana?
That's correct.
Do you have connections or know anybody who in the region, since Punta Cana is, when we talked about hot tourist destinations, do you have connections there that you work with?
There are other hosts. It's difficult to give recommendations because, you're giving responsibility to somebody of something so valuable. You're investing $200,000 in an apartment plus furnishing. So there are people that I've worked with in the past, but it's a little bit challenging to say, oh, this person is responsible and this and this and that, because it's a lot of responsibility to accept somebody's unit, and people need to develop a high degree of trust in order to trust you that you are doing your job and making sure you're doing everything correctly.
What's been the occupancy rate for your clients?
I have units that are rented 100%. Oh, wow. That is the goal, 100%. It's actually not even the goal. I actually prefer having 3 or 4 nights free. That way, if you want to go in and do some maintenance, you'll be able to do so. You'll have a night here and a night there available.
We have a question from the screen. Patrick asked, I guess what's your take on a pet-friendly policy with your units? What do you suggest?
I have 2 of my units are pet friendly, and that kind of increases occupancy rates. The guest just needs to be understand that any issues that may occur with your pet, that they are responsible, like any additional cleaning fees or any repairs. So as long as they go in knowing that they are responsible for any damage caused by your pet, then it's okay for some properties.
And do you add like a additional fee for, like, if someone wants to bring a pet, is that an additional fee that you would add to your?
I don't, but you do have that option. But again, because some pet owners, you don't have any evidence whatsoever that there was a pet in the unit, and others are not as careful. So you can't really punish everybody for the mistakes of a few. If that one individual does cause some damage, then that one individual will have to, pay for whatever damage that has occurred. Well, if you guys have any additional questions, I'm downstairs and available.